It wasn't until high school that I found out that I didn't just have spina bifida. I had cloacal exstrophy also, and I didn't really know what that meant. So during high school, during my lunch times, I would go onto the computer and kind of research what's exstrophy, what's a mitrophanol, what's a pull through, and things like that. And I came across the Bladder Exstrophy Association, the ABC, and I submitted for a membership, and I started emailing Tom Exler, and this was in 2002, and he returned my emails. I found out now that he thought I was totally full of it, but now that he knows me and he's seen some of the things that I've shown him, he realizes it was the real deal. But I can understand. I probably think I was full of it too. But anyway, he humored me, and when Kathy was gone at work or something, I'd call him up on the phone. And I don't know how he did it, but he got together with a couple other members who were in California, Anna Gimlin, Doug Kreitz, and Brianna Campbell, who kind of met my foster mother, and together they kind of encouraged her, you know, she needs to be able to go out and meet other, I don't really know how they did it, but anyway, they managed to let me go to the youth rally, which is the first time I ever met somebody else with an ostomy, or who catheterized, or even more had exstrophy and knew what it was, because I didn't really know. So I got to go to the rally in Boulder, Colorado, and I met lots of other people and had a great time. And I realized for the first time looking around, they were adults and children, and they were having a good time and doing the things they wanted to do in life, and didn't care that they had an ostomy. They could do whatever they wanted, and they weren't in trouble because they had one. It wasn't their fault that they had one, and they were supported. They weren't, and I realized that they weren't criticized for having an ostomy. There were actually people working together, medical professionals, family members, friends, you name it, to try to make their life better, make them feel more accepting of themselves and what they needed to do with their lives. And I realized the adults were working, some had families, some were married, and they were happy. So that got my mind turning. I started thinking, so if this is how everybody else lives, how can I get from the situation I'm in now over to there where they are, because that's where I wanted to be. After that, I went to the camp out in Tahoe, which was a bunch of families, including Doug Kreitz, who all had a child or a family member with exstrophy. And that was a lot of fun too, because hey, who doesn't like going camping? And Tom Exler came also. So it was my first time experiencing a family atmosphere, not just a camp out, but seeing how families interacted with their family member with exstrophy, and how they got to be outdoors and have a good time and enjoy life and have a camp out. And they all had exstrophy. They all went to the bathroom, took care of their catheters, took care of their bags, showered, went swimming, played ball, and had a good time. So that summer I learned a lot, and it got me thinking. I kept it to myself when I went home, but from that point on, I had been thinking, how do I get out of here? What do I need to do to make my life better for me? My foster mother was married before I went into foster care, and she stayed married until I entered high school. During my high school years, she had a hard time with her husband and her. They just weren't seeing eye to eye anymore, and he left. He couldn't take it anymore. It's my own opinion and observation, but also there's only one person from that family that I keep in touch with. He's not really related to me, but I call him Uncle. He's the brother of the foster father. My foster father didn't really have this, well, I would say cojones. He didn't really have the, to stand up and say, hey, this isn't right, but he didn't feel right about what was happening to me. There were many other children in the home, but none of them were treated like I was. And he felt bad when she wasn't home. He'd be forced to take her role to make sure that I stayed locked up, make sure I was writing those sentences, make sure I was scrubbing, make sure I was miserable. Um, I wasn't allowed to eat, I wasn't allowed to drink, things like that. So when my foster mother wasn't home, he'd have pity on me and he'd let me out. So those were the few times I got to watch a movie or have something nice to eat, or he'd sneak me some water or some juice or let me out to go to the bathroom. So anyway, in high school, things started to change. After he walked out and they started going through their divorce process, I got more freedom. I was no longer locked up in that room. How can I run the house while she's at work if I'm locked up? I can't. I can't take care of the other kids. I can't make sure that they're up and ready to go to school. I can't make sure I get myself to school. So she had to let me out. So I started to get more freedom that year. And as I started to get more freedom, I started planning. Okay, so now I'm able to get out. I'm able to think. I got my first job because the social worker of one of my foster sisters that I've been taking care of since we were 5, she had a mental retardation called Angelman syndrome, and I was her main caregiver since we were kids up until I turned 18 and ran away. Her social worker noticed that I was her main caregiver and pulled me aside when I was 14 and said, "You know you can get paid for doing this." And I looked at her like, "Really? I can?" So that was my first paid job, was getting paid by the county to do what I was already doing, taking care of the house and taking care of the kids. So that was my first experience in healthcare. So I saved up that money, but because I was underage, you have to have a bank account that's linked to a parent or a guardian. So my foster mother had to open up a bank account under her name for me. Well, it was under my name, but your parent has access to it until you're 18. So I started putting money aside so I could go to college. That was my escape plan. If I got good grades and I worked hard and tried to stay healthy, I could go to college and never come back. I thought if I got into a school that was far away, I could live there and I wouldn't have to come home. Well, I didn't really know you can't do that, but I tried. I got into the University of San Francisco's nursing program, and I went to start their summer bridge program. At the end of the program, though, I found out that you can't stay here, you gotta go home during the breaks. And I realized that, okay, I don't really know where to go to. So during high school, after she got a divorce, I became sort of in charge of the house because she had to go to work outside full time instead of getting paid for the foster care she was doing in home. And by the way, the more medically fragile children you have in your home, the more money you get from the state that you can claim as income. Anyways, so I did my best to make her happy and keep my mouth shut because inside I was planning on how to get the hell out of here through grades and through going to college. So when she finalized her divorce in 2003, the year I graduated from high school, she took a big chunk of her, spousal support or divorce settlement. I'm not so sure what you call it, but she got a lot of money. So she started planning on taking a cruise ship to Greece. And I thought that was the greatest idea. I encouraged her like nobody's business because that meant she would be gone for 3 weeks. I'd be home alone and I'd have all the time in the world to scour the house for my birth certificate, my records, my mother's letters, anything that I could find that belonged to me. I think she kind of knew I'd do that when she was gone because she put chains and padlocks on the garage cabinets and doors so I couldn't get in them. I knew that's where she kept the records. But I got a screwdriver and I took all the handles off the doors and got my records and screwed it back on. Anyway, so I packed up all those things and I called my friends and I said, "Come get me. She's gone and this is my chance to get out of here." So one of my best friends, Oscar, got his truck and he came to get me right away, and we packed up my dresser with my clothes in it, my school books, my records, my pictures, things that I felt were important, and I moved out. Well, I was going to move in with that uncle who was sympathetic and knew what was going on. He said I could stay at his house. Well, The foster father was still afraid of the foster mother, and however he found out, I have no idea. But he intercepted me en route to his house and kind of coerced me into moving in with him. That didn't last long because when Kathy came back from her vacation, found out I was gone, of course she had a holy cow, I'm sure, and was trying to figure out where I went and who did I tell what was going on. And she started showing up at his house. And I was trying to figure out, how do I get out of here? This is an even worse situation than the one I just left. So my friends and I started talking on purpose loudly to them about renting an apartment somewhere in the city where we could go to school. Of course, that wasn't true. I could not have afforded to get an apartment in San Francisco. In reality, I moved into a friend's garage in East Palo Alto, and that's where I lived for the next almost 2 years while I worked as a caregiver in Redwood City. I worked and paid my way through school, and I learned how to pay rent, pay bills, be self-sufficient, go shopping, budget, manage my account, and things like that. Oh, also, the money I had saved up while I was getting paid by the county for taking care of the kids in Kathy's house, she cleaned it out the night before I turned 18 and bought herself a new red Mazda RX-8 with my account, so I had no money. I had to start from day one and start building up savings again. Well, I didn't have an easy time building up savings because of my health. During high school, I started growing cysts in my abdomen because I was in puberty. I was collecting menstruation and cysts, and she refused to let me have the operation to get it taken care of. So that started probably when I was 13 or 14, and they grew until I was 18. I wasn't allowed to have surgery. When I turned 18, I was very sick. I was in and out of the hospital a lot while I was trying to work and support myself, and I spent a lot of time at Packard and lost several jobs because I wasn't healthy enough. And because of my inability to keep jobs because of my health, I lost my housing several times. So as I struggled to keep my financial situation and my health together, I ended up having to quit school for a while. Eventually, I went back to school and got my CNA through a regional county program called ROP. CNA is a certified nursing assistant, and after I did that, I got a job working at a nun's convent in Atherton at the Religious of the Sacred Heart. And I like that job a lot. I've always been very Christian. That's what's kind of kept me strong throughout the years is, my faith in God and knowing that even if nobody else cared what was going on, He cared and He was watching out for me. And so I enjoyed working with the nuns. We'd have theological discussions and debates, and of course I'd be taking care of them, and I got paid for it, and I was able to pay my rent and pay back bills that I had added up, school debts, things like that. And I moved to San Mateo out of East Palo Alto, and I lived there until now.